and welcome. I'm Joshua Barnes and you're watching The World Report. Let's first take a look at the top stories. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is set to meet US President Donald Trump to hold pivotal talks on the Middle East. Israeli delegations are being sent to Doha to discuss the Gaza ceasefire and to extend the 40-day truce deal agreed with Hamas. China's finance minister has imposed additional tariffs of up to 15% on American goods in response to Trump's 10% duty on all Chinese goods. As trade tensions escalate, China has also announced measures targeting American firms, including Google. Meanwhile, President Trump has agreed to pause 25% tariffs on Mexico and Canada after agreements were struck with the border nations' leaders. Justin Trudeau agreed to reinforce Canadian borders against the flow of migrants and drugs, while Claudia Sheinbaum will send thousands of troops to the Mexican border. The UN has reported an alarming rise in Russian executions of captured Ukrainian soldiers as strikes from Kyiv have again targeted a major Russian oil refinery. Meanwhile, the EU has signalled that rules over debt could be changed to allow more defence spending amid the war. The UN has raised alarm over a sharp increase in the execution of Ukrainian soldiers by Russian forces, with 79 executions reported in just 24 incidents since last August. Meanwhile, Russia has suffered a significant loss with the death of Sergey Efremov, the deputy governor of the Primorsky Krai region, killed by a landmine in Kursk during ongoing military operations. In a rare piece of good news, Ukraine successfully returned 12 children forcibly taken to Russia as part of its Bring Kids Back UA initiative. Meanwhile, Ukraine's military claimed responsibility for successful strikes on Russian energy facilities, hitting a refinery in Volgograd and a gas plant in Astrakhan, key suppliers to Russia's military operations. On the European front, EU leaders have committed to strengthening their defence capabilities in response to ongoing threats from Russia. Joining us first to discuss this story, we have Aditya Wadwan, our correspondent. Aditya, I'd like some more information looking specifically at this UN report that has come out regarding executions of soldiers who are being held.
Well, Josh, if you see the UN Human Rights Monitoring Mission has, has reported alarming number of execution of the Ukrainian soldiers by the Russian armed forces. You know, the Ukrainian mission has reported that many war crimes have happened by Russia. As per the international humanitarian law, it is prohibited to execute the prisoners of war and the wounded soldiers. So this tantamounts to the war crimes by the Russia. And what is significant here is, Josh, most of the Ukrainian soldiers who had surrendered or were in the custody of the Russian armed forces were shot dead on the spot. So this needs to be seen as to when would all this be stopped? Yes, Josh, back to you in the studios.
It is also worth mentioning that in this US report that there is detail of a Ukrainian execution of a Russian soldier. We will come back to that, but joining us first to discuss this overall topic regarding the war in Ukraine, we have Gautam Mukherjee, who is a senior journalist. Gautam Mukherjee, thank you very much for your time. I want to focus now on the strikes that we've seen hitting parts of the Russian energy infrastructure. What do you think Ukraine's goal is behind these strikes?
Well, I think they're trying to intensify the battle because Russians have been making gains in a number of areas. They've been taking territory. They are, as you've pointed out, executing a lot of Ukrainian soldiers in order to demoralize the rest. So this is an intensification of the war at a time when both sides are fairly exhausted because it's been going on for nearly a little over 2 years now. And it is time to bring it to a close, settle matters, get into the negotiating table and figure out who gets what. And and stop the fighting.
Also joining us is Dr. Sergey Efremov, who is the Director of Communication on the BCMF BRICS Culture Media Forum, joining us live from Moscow in Russia. Dr. Efremov, I'd like to get your response on this UN claim that Russians are executing soldiers at a rising rate, at an alarming rate.
Namaste, namaskar. First of all, I want to say that today we celebrate International Day of Human Fraternity. And it was 2019 famous meeting in Abu Dhabi, where two spiritual leaders, one of them, it was a Pope of Vatican, Francisco, and the second was Chief Imam, Ahmad Al-Tayyib. They wrote and put signature of the very important document, Human Brotherhood for World Peace and Living Together. That's why I want just remind, and to start my speech, remind about significance of this 4th of February, significance of this day. We should come again to the human rights. We should come again to the mercifulness in our hearts. And of course, our civilization, Christian civilization, is a civilization where we always promote and support these traditional values. And war is always war. And that is a conflict. I agree with a colleague, with the previous speaker who told about intensification of the war, because it's some dramatic point of history where we can completely understand that it was a conflict of civilization between West and East part of the world.
Yes, Dr.
Right now,
Dr. Efremov, though, I'm asking you specifically about the UN report about executions, and I'd like your response to that specifically.
See, of course, I have, we can only explain our human reaction for this. Because, you see, we cannot expect anything else. Because I think that all world media should talk more about peace and about the possibilities to put all leaders and negotiate with the peace. Is most important. It's a human resource. We should spiritualize all politicians to make peace on the basic level. That is most important, for my opinion. Thank you.
Do you think that these executions are bringing Russia closer to peace? Do you think executions from the Ukrainian side are bringing them to the table as well? It seems that although discussions have been mentioned with Donald Trump, it seems that, as you've mentioned already, the fighting has intensified. So what needs to happen to get that closer to a reality?
Reality is that right now, Mr. Zelensky, previous president of Ukraine, he has no any resources to fight with Russia. That's why he always he always do some and increase some provocative actions to put more attention on his personality. And of course, we should not react. We should not increase this level of aggressive mood. We should be more wisdom. And only one way, I believe, only one way. I believe that Donald Trump is peacemaker. And of course, we should bring some international experts to start to negotiate world dialogue of the peace on Ukraine, on the eastern part of Europe. It's most important. And of course, we cannot expect from Russia any aggressive or anti-human actions. It is not in our nature, it is not in our blood. We always try to support small nations. That is in our history. And again, I want to tell that it's not conflict against our brother nation, Ukrainian, which is also against Slovenian nation. We are not only neighbors, we are brothers. But this conflict was created by the third part. That is most important. And third part should take care how to negotiate with peace.
Gautam Mukherjee, before we move on very quickly, I want to discuss the EU's potential plans to sort of stretch their rules to enable more defence spending. Is this, do you think, a direct reaction to Vladimir Putin?
I think it's saber rattling, basically, Joshua, because they have very little money and they have very little by way of armaments that they can spare from their own defense requirements. To take on Russia, this was a misguided plan from the start. Ukraine was always meant to be a buffer state, not a state into which the West is going to encroach and come up to Moscow. Now that they've done so and spent a lot of money, mostly American money, to bring the war to this pass, now the American money is going to dry up. And I do not think that the EU is in a position to step up and fill the gap. They have no choice but to come to the negotiating table.
Gautam Mukherjee, Dr. Dvoryanov, thank you very much for your time. Of course, the Russia-Ukraine war is constantly developing and we will continue to bring you those latest updates. We now move to China, who have responded strongly to the US tariff hikes by filing a complaint with the World Trade Organization, arguing that the move was unjustified and violated international trade rules. In retaliation, Beijing announced new tariffs on US goods. Here is the full update.
On Tuesday, China took decisive action in response to the United States' recent tariff hikes, filing a complaint with the World Trade Organization. Beijing argued that Washington's move to increase tariffs on Chinese goods was not only unjustified but also a violation of international trade rules. In retaliation to the US decision, China announced new tariffs of its own. Starting next Monday, Beijing will impose a 15% tariff on US coal and liquefied natural gas imports, alongside a 10% tariff on crude oil, agricultural machinery, and large engine vehicles such as pickup trucks. As the situation continues to unfold, President Trump has signaled that a diplomatic resolution might be possible.
China will be speaking to China probably over the next 24 hours.
Adding to the tensions, China's State Administration for Market Regulation recently announced that it has launched an investigation into US tech giant Google. The agency said that Google is suspected of violating the anti-monopoly law of the People's Republic of China. Bureau Report, NewsX.
We'll now take a look at the latest updates from across North America. Crews have now removed some of the wreckage after the collision in Washington, D.C. The American Airlines plane collided with an Army Black Hawk helicopter last week. Both air vehicles crashed into the Potomac River. Fire Chief Gary Steen has stated that out of the 67 victims, 55 have so far been identified. More remains were recovered this Monday and they were in the process of being identified. US aid has closed its headquarters to staff on Monday. Elon Musk and President Donald Trump's controversial aid had been made to shut down the agency. Workers at the US Agency for International Development were told to stay out of its Washington office after its website went dark over the weekend, followed by Secretary of State Marco Rubio announcing on Monday that it would come under his control. In a recent development, Trump's nominee to head the Commerce Department, Howard Lutnick, announced he would review the Biden administration's restrictions on firearms exports. These restrictions, imposed in April 2024, target non-governmental users in 36 countries where US firearms are at risk of diversion. Lutnick pledged that if confirmed, he would ensure the department assesses the policy and takes appropriate action. Ontario, Canada's economic powerhouse, has announced a ban on US companies bidding for billions of dollars in government contracts, followed by cancelling a deal with Elon Musk's Starlink. Premier Doug Ford said that Ontario won't do business with people hell-bent on destroying our economy. He added that the US business would lose out on tens of billions in revenue, blaming President Trump for the fallout. A trial has begun for Hadi Matar, accused of attempting to kill author Salman Rushdie in 2022. Matar is an American of Lebanese descent who faces charges of attempted murder and terrorism for the stabbing attack. The attack left Rushdie, who was 77, blind in one eye and with severe wounds. Matar reportedly believed Rushdie's novel, The Satanic Verses, attacked Islam. Rushdie had been targeted for years over death threats linked to the novel's controversial content. Matar will appear appear before Judge David Foley today. US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth visited Texas to inspect military operations at the southern border. The trip is part of President Trump's hard-right agenda to increase the military presence. Hegseth will meet US troops stationed in the region. He praised their efforts, saying they are securing the border. Trump had ordered 1,500 additional troops to the border after taking office. Military aircraft have been used for deporting migrants as part of the operations. In a tragic escalation of violence in South Sudan, artillery shelling on the capital of South Kordofan, Kadugli, has left at least 40 people dead and 70 others wounded. The attack has sparked widespread outrage and concern as the devastating war between the army and paramilitary forces rages on. Watch this latest in the report.
Artillery shelling in Sudan's south has killed at least 40 people and wounded about 70. As per reports, the shelling hit the South Kordofan capital of Kadugli under the control of the Sudanese army, which has been at war with the rival paramilitaries since April 2023. In a statement, South Kordofan Governor Mohamed Ibrahim said that the attack was carried out by a faction of SPLMN led by Abdelaziz al-Hilu. SPLMN is a significant armed group that has been a key player in the region's conflict, maintaining a presence in both South Kordofan and Blue Nile. According to two medical sources, the shelling targeted a local market, with the majority of casualties being civilians. Last week, the army broke a siege of its headquarters in the capital and the signal corps in Khartoum North, which had both been encircled by the RSF since the war began. On Saturday, at least 60 people were killed and more than 150 injured when the RSF shelled a busy market in army-controlled Omdurman, part of Greater Khartoum. Both warring sides have been repeatedly accused of targeting civilians and indiscriminately shelling residential areas. The war has killed tens of thousands of people, uprooted more than 12 million and devastated Sudan's fragile infrastructure, forcing most health facilities out of service. The UN's migration agency said on Monday that more than 600,000 people have been displaced from North Darfur since April 2024. Bureau Report, NewsX.
Now for the latest from across the world of business. Elon Musk and his team have taken control of the US Treasury Department's payment system. This is prompting a lawsuit that accuses him of unlawfully accessing the privacy data of millions of Americans. Musk, under President Donald Trump's cost-cutting initiative, is facing legal action from labor unions and advocacy groups. The lawsuit seeks a federal judge's ruling to block Doge from accessing taxpayer information. UN member states began negotiations on a global tax agreement aimed at combating tax evasion by wealthy individuals and businesses. However, the United States immediately withdrew from talks. The negotiations, chaired by Egyptian official Rami Youssef, are set to continue until 2027. Currently, international tax matters are largely shaped by wealthy nations in the OECD, leading to criticism from developing countries about their exclusion from decision-making. US manufacturing activity expanded in January for the first time in over 2 years. The Institute for Supply Management's manufacturing index rose to 50.9%, up 1.7 percentage points from November, surpassing expectations of 50%. The index crossing the 50-point mark indicates expansion following 26 months of contraction. The growth came amid improving demand and production. Asian tech stocks rose after US President Donald Trump paused tariffs on Mexico and delayed tariffs on Canada. Gains were broad across Japan, South Korea and Hong Kong, mirroring a rebound in US markets. Japanese semiconductor firms Advantest and Lasertech led the rally, raising 5% and 4.81% respectively. Tokyo Electron, Renesas Electronics and SoftBank also posted gains. Taiwan's TSMC and Foxconn climbed 2.8% and South Korea's Samsung Electronics rose by over 4%. OpenAI and South Korea's top chat app operator Kakao announced a strategic partnership on Tuesday to develop AI products for the Korean market. According to company officials, Kakao will integrate OpenAI's technology into its services. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman also revealed that many Korean companies will play a key role in the US Stargate data center project, but for now they will prefer to keep the details confidential. Prices for American consumers could rise on key goods. Cars may become $3,000 more expensive due to higher costs for imported parts. Popular drinks like Modelo beer, Tennessee whiskey and tequila could see price hikes, while Canadian maple syrup could also become costlier. Lumber tariffs may push up home prices and fuel costs could rise if Canada reduces crude oil exports in response. Avocado prices may also surge, affecting staples like guacamole, especially before major events like the Super Bowl. That's all we have time for, but we'll continue to bring you more of the latest international news updates very soon.